The Rams trade deadline plan and keys to beating the Cardinals in Week 6. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramily, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your 2 and 3 Los Angeles Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe to Locked On Rams YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, hit that like button, and let us know what is your prediction for the Rams this week against the Cardinals. Drop those score predictions down below. My name is Doug McKay. My friends call me D-Mac. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 Sports, SI, Dodgers Nation, now the Rams for Locked On. As always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He's in his 8th season covering your Los Angeles Rams, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's episode, we are dropping our keys for a Rams win over the Cardinals. Matchups you need to know, what we want to see. We're talking about the trade deadline. Will the Rams be active? What will their plan be? But just a reminder that this episode of Locked On Rams is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $10. Now, Travis, we're going to talk about this matchup in just a second, but Sean McVay had some interesting comments that he made about the Rams' plan at the upcoming trade deadline. He was asked about it and if they're going to make some moves. He said, no, we don't really have the availability. I don't know. You kind of have to have some resources and different things like that for those to be options. So I don't know that those conversations will be as prevalent as maybe in years past. So it doesn't seem like we're going to see an aggressive Rams team at the deadline.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think Sean McVay is one of the few NFL head coaches that actually kind of tells the truth when it comes to this stuff, that in the past, when they've been close to doing something, he's kind of said, yeah, we're in the mix on a few things, and I wouldn't be surprised if something happens, whether that was with Odell Beckham or whether that was with Von Miller and some of these guys that he kind of, I don't want to say tips his hand, but he's relatively honest in this stuff. The everydayers will know where I'm going with this. This reminds me of when Les Snead came on my radio show and said, you got to know when your window is open. You got to know when it's time to go and when it's time maybe not to go and maybe kind of recalibrate what's happening next. The Rams very clearly coming into this season do not think that their window's open. They're better than I think anybody thought that they were going to be, but I don't think that they believe they're a trade away from competing for a Super Bowl, or that they're necessarily even a trade away from making the playoffs or not. I think they believe they're good enough to make the playoffs as is. The question is, what do you spend and how much better do you get? Could the Rams make a trade to go from the 7th or 8th best team in the NFC to the 5th or 6th? Maybe, but what's the difference? And I don't think there's much of one. I don't think they think there's much of one. So I think that they're being really smart. I think they're good enough to be in the playoffs. I don't think they're good enough to win the Super Bowl. So let's keep our assets where they are. So next year, maybe they can compete at the very highest levels.
I agree. This year is about seeing what you have, developing young talent, getting back to having that cap space, getting $50-60 million, having that first round pick for the first time in 8 years. You don't want to move away from that capital, from those resources if you don't have to. Yes, if there's a player out there that you love, it's a situation where you could get them now and to help you in 2024. But still, I think that where they're at, it's about developing. It's about seeing what you have in these guys. And look, you're not going to see big moves for the Von Millers, the Dante Fowler Jr.'s, guys like that. You're not going to see that right now. Even last year when they were struggling, they still made some very interesting pushes for players. I mean, they were in talks for CMC. They were in talks for Brian Burns of Carolina, but that's not going to happen this year. And then just look, too, like you always say, don't listen to what they say, listen to what they do. Here, I think you can listen to what they say and do, right? Yeah. And it's really an indication of where they're at because they traded Ramsey, you cut Floyd, you move on from Bobby Wagner, you sign free agents on minimum deals, you make trades like for Kevin Dotson's that's worked out, for Keller Witherspoon that's worked out. So they have made some good moves. I will say if there's a trade that they could make, I would if I could. And I know depth is king, but still, if I could trade Joe Noteboom, you could get some minimal salary cap relief there. I don't think they're going to get Noteboom for their buck if they do trade for him, but I do think when you consider where he's at and how Dotson's look, if I'm going to make a move, if another team's interested in him, that's the guy I'm moving.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would be a little slower to do that, maybe simply for the fact that I think that he's a valuable depth piece, that he could play basically, 4 different positions on that offensive line. Makes me feel a little bit comfortable if somebody else goes down. I know he's not a perfect player, but he's a useful player. He's an acceptable player at times. I think what they're looking for is what you just described. Is there somebody else that needs something that you have, and can I collect some draft capital or maybe a little, mid-level NFL talent? I think that's something that they might be interested in. I think the other thing that, going back, and I understand that he's off the market right now, but you heard it over and over again, is a player like Jonathan Taylor. Can I get a player like Jonathan Taylor, but not actually have to do anything to get him? Just basically bring him in, maybe a little draft compensation, and we can see kind of like they did with Odell Beckham, right? We'll bring him in, but there isn't a lot of risk to us. If it works out, great. Maybe we can talk about doing a long-term deal from there. And if not, no, good luck to you down the road. I think that's where they are in their methodology. I don't think that this is we are blank player away from making a run to this thing. That's what they were for about a 4 or 5 year window. That part of it is closed, and they're trying to open up a new one.
Yeah, and we're not going big game hunting, right? We're not doing that at this deadline. If there's a deal that could help them next season that made sense at the right price, like the Kevin Dotson deal, I say go for it. Sure. But I don't want to see any big swings because, look, we've played the Eagles. We played the 49ers. And yes, we've remained competitive with those teams, but I think you can see the disparity in talent between a chips all in, like we saw this Rams team in 2021 versus the team they have now. But I do think there is an interesting move you could make that was suggested by ESPN's Bill Barnwell, Travis. He thinks the Rams should trade Troy Reeder for Rashaad Penny. Now, Reeder, of course, he's mainly only used on special teams for the Rams. He has had experience as a starting inside linebacker. And Penny, he's been buried on the Eagles depth chart. He's been inactive. You had DeAndre Swift as the feature back. Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott are ahead of him on the depth chart. So if you look at this Rams running game, Kyren Williams has been good. 403 yards, 6 touchdowns, 90 touches, first 5 weeks. Ronnie Rivers is solid. He doesn't provide that change of pace, explosion that Rashaad Penny could. So if you could pull up this deal, I actually would be all in on it.
Yeah, that's not the cost is low, so sure. I think that's one of those we can get a little better in a position where maybe we have a small amount of need and it doesn't really cost us too much what we're giving up in a player like Reeder. Okay, the Rams are not a second running back away from being particularly different than they are right now. Like let's just imagine a world where he's here tomorrow. Are the Rams different? I don't think really, not very much. I think if you're going to make a move, that move needs to be somebody that can go get the quarterback. That move might need to be somebody that is a corner, somebody that can defend, somebody that can take the ball away a little bit. The Rams are going to score points. The Rams have an offense that moves the ball. I don't know. Penny's, San Diego State guy. I get it. That we've seen him a little bit, but if you're going to do something, I think it needs to be on the other side of the ball, particularly a pass rusher or corner. Penny is fine, but I don't know if it changes the team all that much.
I would say that I tend to agree with you for sure. I think the priority has to be, if you're going to bolster one position group, get a veteran. I mean, Frank Clark is someone who's out there. Carlos Dunlap, Melvin Ingram. There are guys you could get. You got a little relief there with the Van Jefferson trade, right? You trade away Cam Akers. If they want to go that route, they could. I also think, too, that internally it feels like they are somewhat high on Oshwan Mathis, who definitely showed some promise and potential in his first appearance there with this Rams team. So that's interesting. I think Rashaad Penny, though, look, this is why I think, look, if you could pull it off, it would make sense because the cost would be low, right? And then 2, anything that gets Sean McVay to further commit to the run, I'm here for. Because as good as Kyren Williams has been at times, he's going to go away with it in the second half. And Penny is one of the most explosive running backs. If you want my 2 cents on Penny, okay, I'll show myself out. That he's been one of the most explosive running backs. I mean, last year averaged the most yards after contact, 4.6 rushing yards over expected. among running backs since 2021. So he has that explosion, that home run threat. And I think that he'd be a nice complementary piece to Kyren Williams.
I just wanted you to know, A, I heard the joke, and B, I'm not here for it. But secondarily, even when Bryce Perkins was playing quarterback, they didn't run the ball. So if you think that they're adding another running back away from committing to the running game, I don't know what to tell you, D-Mac. He ain't doing it. It's just he likes to pass, and that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, you're 100% right. So it'll be interesting. I do hope they do make a little move on that D-line to help this defense out, because I still believe this is a playoff team, like you said earlier in the segment. But coming up, we are going to focus on the Rams matchup with that Cardinals team. Can the Rams get back in the win column? That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
All right, D-Mac, let's talk about Jace case, right? We've seen what happens when the supply chain kind of breaks down, or when there's just a shortage, whether there's a pandemic, a natural disaster. Maybe you're traveling overseas and you just want to make sure that you have the comfort and the peace of mind of knowing that you have medication, right? That you have what you need in the event of something going wrong. And this is where Jace case can come in. You fill out a form. It's very, very easy. You go online, you fill out the form, then you get a prescription, and life-saving medications are delivered right to your door. I did it, and the medication was on my doorstep literally 4 or 5 days later. That's how fast it happens. Jace case gives you peace of mind, so you're not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. You actually have it. Jace case, make sure you have the medication in hand. Here's how you do it. You go, or you should say you get $20 off life-saving antibiotics, 5 different life-saving antibiotics from Jace Medical by using the code LOCKEDON at checkout at jacemedical.com. That's JASE, jacemedical.com. And don't forget that code LOCKEDON for $20 off at checkout.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And as always, we just want to send a special shout out to our everyday listeners. We appreciate you watching every episode, listening to every episode, and you can be an everyday listener too. Membership is 100% free, and you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. Now, Travis, here in our second segment, we're going to focus on this matchup this weekend against the Arizona Cardinals. And I think the first thing I want to see from this Rams team this week, I want to see them finish the job and win the second half. And the Rams' 2 losses, they've been competitive at halftime. You saw them tie with the Bengals and 49ers. They trailed the Eagles by 3 points. But the Rams have been outscored 55-25 since week 2 in the second half. Week 1, you saw against the Seahawks team, they outscored them 23-0. They'll be the best second half team in the league. But let's see a better second half from the Rams this weekend.
Can I add one small thing to that? Because I agree with you. I think that the second half has been the Achilles heel of this team so far through the first 5 weeks of the season. But I just want to add about the last 90 seconds of the first half. I want to put that in there too, because for the first, 28 and a half minutes of the first half, they've been as good as anybody in the NFL. They gave the 49ers a better run than anyone else has. They arguably gave the Philadelphia Eagles a run better than anybody else has, but they also went into halftime in both of those games either tied or behind. And that's just so hard to wrap my head around, because they have gone on these drives. They have put on points on the board. And in both of those cases, they had an opportunity not only to take the lead or go in with the lead, but they also had the ball coming out in the third quarter. They were going to receive the kick in the second half. And all of that momentum just poof, up in smoke with 2 touchdowns, one to Brock Purdy and the 49ers, the other one to the brotherly shove that we saw before the end there. So, yeah, the second half is incredibly important, and they need to play better. We saw what Indianapolis did to them. But the last 90 seconds of the first half has been a nightmare as well.
And Darion Kendrick, I'm looking at you. I can see right now him shoving Marquise Brown in the back of the end zone, throw the flag, right? Josh Dobbs sneaks in at the 1 or something like that. But yeah, you're 100% right. This team in the first half has been really good. They've outscored opponents 64-50 this year in the first half. Also, Travis, Sean McVay's teams, a hallmark of Sean McVay's teams is they're good second half teams, right? So I think this team, they come out strong in the first half, a great script. They go play their game plan. It works well. In the second half, you see some adjustments. Also, too, the talent disparity, I think, starts to take shape in the second half, which hurts them as well. But also a little more conservative as far as the play calling in the second half. So I want to see them go for the throat, stay aggressive. I think they're going to play loose against this Cardinals team. And then second key, Travis.
Oh, can I add something real quick there, D-Mac? Because you said something I think super important, that the Rams are at a talent disparity against San Francisco. They are at a talent disparity against the Philadelphia Eagles. They won't be on Sunday. For the first time, maybe since Indy, they're not going to be the team that has less talent on the field. That San Francisco, Philadelphia, Cincinnati and Seattle, if you just put the rosters on paper, you're probably picking the other guys. This is the first time since then that you're definitely picking the Rams. So they need to take advantage of the fact, because look, the NFL is brutal. The very best team and the very worst team, the talent gap's only about that big, right? It's pretty close. This is one of those times where you're on the right side of it. You better punch your ticket.
Exactly. And also, too, that is the problem with the Cardinals. They've been competitive in games, too. They're 1-4, but they can't finish in the second half. And I'm the last guy that would ever want less football, but maybe we just play one half of football in this one. Maybe the best team win, right? I mean, maybe that's a possibility.
I think there's something to what you just said, too. Arizona's been in every game they've played this year, but they are 1-4, and eventually losing starts to pile up. And the more losing there is, the less fight is in a guy or in a team. And I think if you can get up on them, that there will be this, oh, man, all right, here we go again. And they're going to let go of that rope. So don't let them hang around. Don't let them have, a shot in the fourth quarter. Put this thing away as quickly as possible, because a bad team will roll quicker than a good team. And the Arizona Cardinals are not a good team. They're competitive, and give them a lot of credit, because I thought they're going to be a lot worse than they are. But this is a 1-4 football team, and you need to treat them like it.
Yeah, this is definitely a take care of your business game, right? You have to do that. And I think another big key, too, is let's see Cooper Kupp continue to work his way back in the mix. I'm very excited to see Cooper Kupp in his second game back, 118 yards in his first game back. Very impressive. Hadn't played since last November, but another week of practices, another week of getting your stamina, endurance back, getting those legs underneath him. We've seen this receiving core with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. We've seen great results so far. And also, Van Jefferson's gone. He's going to be in Atlanta, right? Good luck to him. And I think now you have a really clear picture of what they're going for. Tutu, Puka, Cooper Kupp. Let's see what they can accomplish. And I think if you protect Matthew Stafford and let him go to his weapons, they're going to put up points all day against his Cardinals D.
I think there's two things. Number one, you mentioned the fitness of Cooper Kupp, and not that he's running around out there with a beer belly. That's not what I'm talking. But just playing NFL football is different than practicing. It's different than making sure that you're in great physical condition, which Cooper Kupp always has been since he's come into the league. But being able to play 4 quarters and get knocked down and get up and get hit and all the things that add up, I think that hopefully by Green Bay, we're not even talking about this anymore, but hopefully we're a step from Philadelphia to Arizona this week. We see it in the right direction. The other thing is with those two guys together, like you're talking about, and we saw it happen. The middle of the field is available. With these two guys doing what they're doing, I would love to see a big Tyler Higbee game. When's the last time that we saw a game where Tyler Higbee had 10 catches and Tyler Higbee got in the end zone? I would love to see one of those. I don't need him to turn into Travis Kelce. It'd be great if he could, but just be a guy that you have to account for, because that helps the other two guys outside.
Yeah, the middle is going to be open. I'm looking at that matchup, Cooper Kupp versus Jalen Thompson. Yeah. Thompson, he's played the most snaps inside this year. That's a huge mismatch that I think they're going to exploit, not just with Kupp, but also with Nacua. I mean, you're supposed to win against a safety if you're Kupp in that situation. Oh, yeah. We know Kupp has absolutely feasted against the Arizona Cardinals. 11 games in his career. He's had at least 4 catches for 50 yards, had 5 touchdowns in those games. So he's consistently been good. And also, the last game for the Cardinals, they let Jamar Chase have his biggest game of the year. He was outstanding, 15 catches for 192 yards and 3 touchdowns. So look for Cooper Kupp to have a monster game. I think you protect Matthew Stafford. He's going to be able to carve. And I'm also looking at this offensive line. Who's going to start at guard? Because Dotson, he's been great. He's been fantastic. Noteboom, he's really struggled. I think that's going to be something I'm focused on. And then also the edge rusher spot. Will we see more Oshwan Mathis over Hoecht? And is this the week that experiment with Hoecht kind of starts to diminish a little bit?
Yeah, I don't need to see him covering somebody anymore. I'm done with that. That was shocking in week 1 against the Seattle Seahawks, where I was like, wait, what? You have Michael Hoecht trying to cover DK Metcalf? Really? This is a part of the plan, and it's gotten worse since there. I want to go back to the O-line. You said a second ago that they do have options. They do have Dotson that can slide in there, and that Alaric Jackson is back and all these things. But can we just go back towards the end of that Philadelphia game where Rob Havenstein missed one play and they brought in McClendon and Matthew Stafford nearly got killed?
Yeah.
He took the hardest shot of the season because Havenstein was gone for one play. That's really, really scary to me. We saw what it looked like when Zachary Thomas was at left tackle and he was taking some shots, Stafford that is. Those two guys on the end, whether it's Jackson and Havenstein or whoever they might put out there in short-term duty because somebody got dinged or whatever, it's an incredibly big deal. The Rams got so lucky that Stafford didn't get hurt on that shot because he took a big one.
Absolutely. We saw that this season. It just takes one play, right? I mean, you saw him gutsy against that Colts team, walk around with the hip injury. So you have to keep him vertical. Our season hinges on it. And I think Dotson over Noteboom is key. I mean, the protection. If you look at against the Bengals, Noteboom had a protection score of 0.0. He allowed 6 pressures. So, I mean, I think Dotson is going to be key in that matchup. By the way, what's worse, watching Michael Hoecht in coverage or watching Lance Lynn pitch to batters and give up home runs? It's got to be pretty close because Hoecht overall PFF score of 38.2 last week. I'm bullish on Oshwan Mathis, a 60.7 PFF score. I think he's going to be someone we're going to talk about Monday. I think he's going to make some plays.
I deeply resent you bringing that up. I was kind of sort of starting to feel a little better about it. Now you're making me think about Lynn and why Dave never. But okay, since you brought it up, Ryan Pepia was the only pitcher on the roster that didn't throw a pitch, and he's
going to game 4 though. He's going to game he's going to game 4. He's going to shove in game 4. Okay.
He's your best pitcher, not named Bobby Miller, and maybe was better than Miller over the last month of the season. He's going to throw 0
He's going
pitches?
to game 4.
Oh, that's your fault, D-Mac. Go Rams. Go Rams. It's football season.
But we got some more key matchups coming up and predictions for this Cardinals game, how the Rams could win this game and get to back in that win column. That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams.
All right, PrizePicks is so much fun. You're having fun watching football, right? But would you like to have more fun? Would winning 25 times your money make it more fun? Here's how you do it. It's PrizePicks, right? You select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and you place your entry. That's how easy it is. It's simple to play. You make your picks. You can submit the entry in less than 60 seconds. And if it takes you 60 seconds, you're probably going pretty slow. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make PrizePicks the #1 daily fantasy sports app, right? You like Justin Jefferson more. You like Odell Beckham more or less. Go take a look at all of the matchups. You're going to find something that you absolutely love, right? Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match of up to $100. You heard me right. prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. That's your code. Use the code LockedOnNFL and a first deposit match of up to $100.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single day. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, Travis, here in our final segment, a couple matchups I want to mention, and we're going to drop some predictions. I think this one's a sneaky one. Kobe Durant versus Rondale Moore. Now, Rondale Moore has been a huge impact receiver on the year. He's caught 1 pass for 11 passes for 81 yards, but he does have 116 yards rushing on 8 carries. So look for one of those jet sweeps, quick passes, and Kobe Durant has struggled in tackling. So I think that's going to be a big match they're going to try to exploit. If he gets off, that's going to help them stay in this game.
I think so too. And I like that. And I like that for not just Kobe Durant. I like that for basically the entire secondary. I would love to see the Rams use this, for lack of a better term, as a little bit of a get-right game. A little bit of a let's get back to the rules. Let's get back to the fundamentals. Let's make sure that we're wrapping up on tackles. Let's make sure that we're tackling through the ground. Let's make sure that all of those little things that got missed, and look, you're probably losing to the Philadelphia Eagles anyway, but if you miss tackles, you have no chance of doing it. The way you let a team like Arizona into the game, because you are the better team, is by doing it the same way, is by missing tackles, is by taking bad penalties. And we saw that in the secondary. We saw that with Kendrick. We saw that with, a handful of different guys in the Rams. I think this is an opportunity to play clean football, play good football, fundamental football, and it starts outside.
For sure. And speaking of get-right games, Aaron Donald versus Elijah Wilkinson or Dennis Daly, that's going to be big because the Cardinals, you don't know who their left guard's going to be. We're going to find out Sunday. And so between Wilkinson and Daly, and no matter who it is, Donald, he's going to have the matchup advantage, right? Yeah. Last week we saw against one of, if not the best offensive line in the NFL, they did neutralize Aaron Donald. They did make him a non-factor at times, but Donald has been absolute monster against his Cardinals team. 16 sacks in 18 regular season games. I think he's going to have a big one, getting really back into being that dominant player that we saw the previous 2 weeks before that Eagles game.
Aaron Donald, okay, this is not going to be popular. Aaron Donald is no longer an A+. He's just an A, right? And that's, life in pro sports. He's still an A. And these are the opportunities for him to flash as an A+ here and there. This is an opportunity for him to go do what he does. He is still an incredibly high-level player. But the days of him just being able to be dominant, no matter what you do to him, I think we're starting to see cracks in that. We saw what happened to San Francisco. It was like he wasn't there. We saw what happened in Philadelphia. He had a half a tackle. This is just the things that start to happen when you spent 10 years in the NFL. He's still at a high level, but somebody else is going to have to step up, because if anybody becomes even a small bit of a problem, it makes life easier for Aaron Donald. But so far, nobody's been able to do that. And for maybe the first time in his entire career, he needs it as much as they need it, that he's going to need a little bit of something from somebody else to free him up to be at his best.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're starting to see a little bit where maybe there's some slippage, but then it looks like it's very tiny. It's like basically like first championship with the Lakers Shaq versus last championship with the Lakers Shaq. Right?
I love that.
Like
I love
super
that.
MVP versus maybe just a little bit of a drop up, but still in the conversation. But I mean, we are so used to him just being so unstoppable on every single play that, hey, I think too, playing with a defense is far less talented, right? I think that's an impact as one has an impact. But also, how about this one? Darion Kendrick versus Marquise Brown, right? I think this is going to be so key if this game's going to be interesting. Because if this game is close in the fourth quarter, we're looking at 27-21. I think you're starting to really get nervous because the NFL, anything can happen. That's a guy who can make a big play. And Brown is going to be lined up on the outside. It's going to put him on matchups with Witherspoon and Kendrick. We know that Witherspoon, he's been fantastic. He's been terrific all season long. So look for Dobbs to try to exploit Kendrick. And Kendrick has to avoid getting beat deep. He has to avoid the explosive plays. He has to avoid the penalties. I think it's going to be a big challenge for him. He's got to step up, have a big game there against Brown.
I agree with that. I want to throw one more in there, D-Mac, before we head out of here, because I think that this, and you just said something that sparked the thought. A close game. All of the games the Rams have played so far have been pretty close, but they have not come down to the last minute, I guess, other than the overtime game that we saw. Brett Maher has been bad. Full stop. He's missed more kicks this year than Matt Gay missed all of last year. That's a problem. At some point, you're going to need a kick to win a game. At some point, missing a kick could lose you a game. It nearly happened in Indy a few weeks ago where he missed 2 kicks, and Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua bailed him out. But special teams have not really been particularly good. At least the kicking game has not been particularly good for the Rams so far. This is how bad teams win games. And I'm talking about Arizona right now. The better team misses a kick. The better team misses tackles. The better team takes a bad penalty. And now all of a sudden it comes down to a kick here or there. They make it, we miss it, something like that. The kicking game for the Rams needs to get better, and it needs to get better quickly.
Yeah, you have to give a lot of credit to this Cardinals team. Like I said, their record, I don't think is a true reflection of how competitive they've been. I think Gannon, and if you look at their offensive coordinator, he's been really, really good this season. I mean, I think they put together a really good game plan. This team, Drew Petzing, yeah, they've really done a nice job keeping them competitive. And this is a game that I think that they feel they can win, right? Yeah. Not a lot of the dubs on their schedule, so they're going to be fighting. And then this would really, really set the Rams back if you want to make that playoff push and get in as a 9-8 team potentially, right? So I think this is such a massive game for the Rams. I have to pick the Rams, right? I'm pretty much going to go, picking the Rams again in this one, but I feel really confident in the Rams. I think Matthew Stafford, this offense is really going to light things up the second week with Cooper Kupp back. I think you're going to see a little more of a balanced attack. I think the defense is going to do enough to make sure that they win this game. I got the Rams putting up 30 points. I got 30 points, 32-21 in this one.
This has been a really favorable matchup for Sean McVay in his career as the coach of the Los Angeles Rams. And whether it was Steve Wilkes or whether it was Cliff Kingsbury, he seems to have just kind of figured out how to beat that team. That's been a very favorable matchup for the Rams. I suspect that it continues against Gannon's version of the Cardinals as well. 30 points sounds about right to me. Honestly, 21 points given up, that might bother me a little bit. I'd like to see that be a little bit lower in the 14-17 range. It's the NFL. The other team's going to score a couple of touchdowns. That's just the way that it goes. But I'd love to see a 31-14 sort of afternoon and just a nice, easy glide into that fourth quarter and not have to be sweating it the way that we have basically through the first 5 weeks of the year.
Yeah, we can't have Arizona beat Los Angeles again, right? We need to win this one. I agree with you. Yeah, we can't have that, right? I mean, Arizona, I think you're going to see some points early on because of how well they play in the first half of some scripted offense, and they're probably going to take advantage. But I think the Rams in the second half are going to pull away and hopefully win by more than a touchdown. The line, round 7 right now. Like you mentioned, Rams 11-2 against the Cardinals under Sean McVay. This is a dub they need, dub they're going to get, and I think we're going to have a nice little victory Monday. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. As always, you can follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, on X at Travis Rogers. And until next time, whose house is Locked On Rams house?